Welcome back to my video series about waypoint navigation in iNav. In this video, we are going to take a look at how to get the altitude of the aircraft at the different waypoints to be as accurate as possible. And this is going to be a trickier one than you might think. Like when you're talking about just did you fly through the waypoint left or right, like the aircraft is pretty maneuverable left and right, but when it comes to climbing and descending, iNav is a lot more conservative about what it wants the aircraft to do compared to what you could get the aircraft to do. You could just put the aircraft into a dive and dive straight down, but iNav isn't going to do that. So we're going to have to find some ways to get iNav to jump through these hoops for us. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. So let's set up a mission here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put waypoint 1 at a reference point. Let's not even do sea level reference. We'll just, it doesn't matter. We're just going to be a very rough and tumble mission. It doesn't really matter. I'll just put my takeoff point here for my altitude calculation. I'm going to put this one at an altitude of 50 meters. Okay. Oh, below ground level. Shut up. Oh, 50. Yeah, 50 meters. There we go. That's, and then what I'm going to do is put another waypoint. I'm going to put it right here at an altitude of 5,000 meters. Or 500 meters. 500 will do. And the key thing is that there's no way the aircraft can climb from 50 meters to 500 meters in this distance without basically going straight up. Let's do one more thing. There's another trick I haven't shown you guys, and that is here at the bottom we can add a action to the waypoint. So I'm going to go to waypoint number 2 and I'm going to add the jump action. And what that will do is that will make the aircraft jump to a previous waypoint when it reaches this waypoint. I'm going to say jump to waypoint 1, and then the other question is how many times will it do it? So in this case it will do it 0 times. In other words, it's not going to do anything. I can put in a number. I think it'll go as high as 10. I don't think it will go higher than 10. No, it'll only go to 10. Or you can put in -1, which means it'll repeat an infinite number of times. So basically what we're going to do here is we're going to say when you get to waypoint 2, jump back to waypoint 1, and it's going to cycle between them repeatedly. This can be useful when you're setting up, like you could set up a waypoint track where it flies out to a location, flies a loop 3 or 4 times, and then flies back to home or something like that. I don't know, you could do complicated things. So we're going to use the jump action for this one. That's it. That's going to be our whole waypoint track. We're going to save it to EEPROM. You know what? There's one more thing I want to show you guys how to do that'll make this a little more interesting. You know, we can pull the waypoints into the map view, but when we're flying, we can't see the waypoints on screen. iNav has a way that it can actually show you the waypoints on your OSD while you're flying. I'm going to show you how to turn that on. So let me go back into iNav configurator, and the first thing we need to do is in the OSD we need the crosshair element turned on. You have to have the crosshair turned on. What I'm about to show you is considered part of the crosshair for the purposes of iNav's configuration. And then we're going to turn on the following options. Set OSD underscore HUD underscore homing equals on. And that is going to let you see your home point in the OSD. Set OSD HUD home point equals on, which will actually show the home point in like a 3D augmented reality. So that's nice. And then we're going to type set OSD HUD WP underscore disp OSD HUD waypoint display equals 2, and that is the number of waypoints that will be shown kind of like in augmented reality. And so we'll see the next 2 waypoints in augmented reality, and we're going to save that. If you want to know more about setting this up, here is the page you can go to. There are a couple more options that you can tweak to get the augmented reality elements to show up on screen closer to where they actually are in reality in your camera. So for example, if you have up tilt on your camera, you can figure that in. You can also change where it appears on screen. I'll put a link here and you can play with that if you want to, but basically check it out. This is what it's going to do. First thing I want you to see is that now that I have turned that radar stuff on, you see on the left side of the screen we've got my home point and the distance to home. And as I come around here, you can see that will There we go. We can see direction home very nicely and distance to home. And then on currently the left side of the screen, I've got waypoints 1 and waypoints 2 and the distance to those waypoints. And again, as I fly around, they will kind of sort of badly augmented reality. But it lets me see in the camera like where the waypoints are. And so that can be nice as you're flying. If you go into the CLI and you tweak some of the camera settings, you can get them to line up much more closely in reality with where they are on screen. I haven't really done that, but anyway. Let's get down to an altitude of roughly 50 meters, and we will turn to fly towards those waypoints. Let's watch what happens. And the key thing I want you to see is how the aircraft interacts with the altitude, okay? The first waypoint's at 50 meters, the second waypoint's at 1,000 meters. What's it going to do? Watch now, we're flying to waypoint 1, 300 meters, 200 meters, 100 meters, and we hit waypoint 1 and we're going to waypoint 2. The altitude was 50 meters. We hit waypoint 2 and we're going to waypoint 1. Wait a minute. We weren't anywhere near 1,000 meters and now we're going back to waypoint 1? What the hell? Well, maybe it'll get it right. Take a look at this track as it comes around. We hit waypoint 1 and we hit waypoint 2. We were within that 8-meter distance of waypoint 2 and it decided we'd hit it even though it wasn't at the right altitude. Now we hit waypoint 1. When did we hit waypoint 1? We're going to waypoint 2. Okay, waypoint 2. Here we go. 120, 190, 80, 50, 40. Notice it is climbing. Oh, now we're going back to waypoint 1, and it begins descending again. So what I want you to see is that the aircraft is making a best faith effort to reach the programmed altitude. But when it doesn't hit the altitude, it doesn't care, and it just moves on to the next waypoint. It has a certain maximum climb angle and maximum climb speed and descent angle and descent speed. When it hits the first waypoint, it does begin to climb, but then it passes underneath the second waypoint and it's like, well, I guess we didn't get there. And then it just doesn't care and it just keeps going. And as dumb as that sounds, a lot of times that's kind of going to be what you want. Like if it's trying to get to altitude, but it doesn't quite get there, it'll just continue to try. Okay, I didn't get there. I'm just going to go to the next waypoint and I'll try to get to that altitude. Okay, this is different from the setting here, the waypoint radius, which is 8 meters, which says you better be within 8 meters of that waypoint. And if you miss the waypoint by more than 8 meters, you turn the frick around and you go back and you get it. You don't just go on to the next one. Okay, when it comes to altitude, there is absolutely no enforcement of altitude. It is always best effort, and if it doesn't get there, it just goes on to the next point. Now, we can fix that with enforce altitude at waypoint. If we enable enforce altitude at waypoint, then the waypoint will not be considered to have been gotten unless we are within a certain altitude of it. Now, if we look here, we can see that fixed-wing craft should not be set below 500 centimeters. 500 centimeters is 5 meters, and the reason for that is that fixed-wing craft have limited ability to control their altitude compared to multi-rotors, which can just hover and get exactly at the right altitude. Let's set this to enforce altitude at waypoint, let's say 15 meters, okay? So 1500 is, 15 meters. Why is it meters and not centimeters? Make up your freaking mind. Do you want it in centimeters or not? Oh, put it 15 meters. Here we go, to waypoint 1, 200 meters away. We're trying to hit waypoint 1. Did we hit waypoint 1? We did. Now we're going to go to waypoint 2, and it says adjusting waypoint altitude. So what it will do now is enter a loiter turn, and as it is in the loiter turn, it will climb. See, we're going up, 115, 17, 20, etc. We are climbing, and it will continue to spiral upwards until it reaches the programmed altitude, and then it will try to hit that waypoint. Jesus Christ, I shouldn't have said 1,000 meters. Okay, 950 meters. We are just about there, and when we reach the altitude, then, as you might guess, we should hit the waypoint, and then what do you think will happen next? We're going to start adjusting the waypoint altitude again for the descent. There we go. We hit it. Now we're adjusting waypoint altitude, and we go on the way back down. So let's talk about ways we can make this better. So the first thing you want to know is that you don't just enable the enforce altitude option and assume that everything's going to go right. The flight controller does not want to put the aircraft in a situation where it tries an arbitrarily steep climb. It doesn't have the power, because lots of aircraft have enough power to just climb straight up, like especially small RC planes. But especially larger vehicles don't have the power to do a straight up climb. And so it will have a limit on how steeply it will attempt to climb, and we're going to play with that. But you don't want to just enforce altitude, because if it misses the altitude, it will spiral up. And depending on the change in altitude, number one, that can take for freaking ever. And number two, it may not be what you want. If you think about my original flight plan, where I flew up over the land and then down to the water and then up over again, like what I should really be doing is I should be setting those waypoints up so that the airplane is able to hit them. And if they're too close together and it's too steep of a climb, I should space them out. I should decide where the airplane should go and how it should fly, rather than just saying, I don't know, just enter a loiter turn and climb until you get there. I mean, maybe that's what you want, but a lot of times it's not going to be what you want, and you should just plan the route more effectively. So with that being said, let's take a look at the settings that control how steeply the aircraft will try to climb and how steeply the aircraft will try to descend. And the first two we're going to look at are the max nav climb angle and the max nav dive angle. And so this is the maximum angle that the aircraft will go to. The max climb is 20 and the max dive is 15. And what is the max you can actually put it at? Can I go, like, how high will you let, oh, you just let me go, I'm going 90 degree dive. Okay, 80 degrees is the steepest dive they'll let me go to. How steep of a climb can we go to? 80. Okay, so let's just set these to max. Now the aircraft will try to go to 80 degrees and we'll try to go to 80 degrees dive. There's something else we need to do though, because if the aircraft just pitches up to 80 degrees, it will then stall. Right? We also need the aircraft to raise the throttle, and that is controlled by the pitch to throttle ratio. So the pitch to throttle ratio says that for every 1 degree of up tilt, you raise the throttle by this much, and for every 1 degree of down tilt, you decrease the throttle by this much. Now, in our case, the cruise throttle is 2,000 microseconds. We're just running max throttle all the time, so this will have no effect on climbs. Let's change that. Let's set the cruise throttle to 1,500 so we can actually see this taking effect. And then let's think about the pitch to throttle ratio. Let's say that in an 80 degree climb, I want to be at full throttle. Now, I know that's not going to work because I just, flying manually, saw that the aircraft at full throttle will stall if I try to go above, I don't know what the degrees was. But we're gonna try this. So at 80 degrees, we want to go to full throttle from 1,500 to 2,000. So basically that 1,500 to 2,000 is 500 degrees. I'm going to divide by 80 degrees of up tilt. That means I need 6.25 microseconds of throttle for every 1 degree of up tilt. Well, we've got 10. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to hit, at 50 degrees, I'm going to hit max throttle, because we have 500 microseconds between the cruise and the max, right? So at 50 degrees, I'll hit full throttle and I'll stay there as I go to 80 degrees. That's fine. I'm fine with that. But you basically want to think about what's your cruise throttle, and then what throttle do you want to be at in your max climb angle? Is it full throttle? Is it 80%? What do you want it to be? And you're going to do that math from cruise throttle to your target throttle, and then the number of degrees divided by the number of degrees, and that's what you're going to set your pitch to throttle ratio to. Likewise, when we go down, we will go to a certain minimum, and I might want to tweak the min throttle to maintain a little bit of throttle even in a dive, so we need to think about that math. This is going to be fine though. We're going to save and reboot, and we'll see what it does. So we're flying, and I don't know where we are in the waypoint track, but let's just activate waypoints. We're going to waypoint 1, and we are descending. Are we adjusting altitude? No, we're just going to the waypoint. Why are we not adjusting altitude? Oh, we're going to go to the waypoint first, and then we're going to adjust altitude. That's right. First it flies to the waypoint, and then it spirals down. It is descending, but it's descending relatively slowly, and it's probably not going to get all the way down to 50 meters by the time it gets to the waypoint. But still, something's up, because we're descending. But we're not descending at an 80 degree descent, are we? we're going to hit that waypoint. We're not going to get to the targeted altitude, and it will begin the descent. Ready? Adjusting altitude. And you notice we're still not in an 80-degree descent. It's like that setting did absolutely nothing, isn't it? And the reason for that is that there is a secret CLI option, well, it's not a secret, it's there, that controls the maximum rate of climb and descent. Although it's named climb rate, it's used to control climb rate and descent rate. And that is set to 500 centimeters or 5 meters per second. The maximum value you can set it to is 20 meters per second by setting equals 2000 and save. And that is actually, so we've got this max angle that the plane is willing to go to, but it still will not do that if that would cause it to exceed this climb rate. The maximum climb and descent rate that iNav will do in waypoint mode under all conditions, as far as I can tell, is 20 meters per second, although the default is 5 meters per second. So in a way, these angles are meaningless. They're not completely meaningless. It's just that in most situations, the CLI parameter on the max climb rate is going to be the thing that limits you before the angle limits you. Let's see now what the airplane does if we have the angle set to something wildly inappropriate and we've raised the max climb rate from 5 meters per second to 20 meters per second. So now we are going to waypoint 2, and look how steep, look how high it's put its nose. It's put its nose way up in the air, and it is trying to climb, and it is successfully climbing. And do you see that it's putting the nose so high that it is stalling the plane? That's what's happening. It's going up to that 80-degree pitch, and the plane is kind of wallowing around and stalling, and it is climbing. It is getting there. 170, 160, 130 meters, 800 meters. We're almost there. It's not very graceful, but it is getting there. Just stalling a lot. All right, now it says adjusting waypoint altitude. It has reached the waypoint, and now it is going to spiral, and now it's going to go down to waypoint 1. It's going to turn, and it's going to descend. Let's see what that looks like. Turning back. It is not descending very steeply. There we go. And it's entered the dive. It's turned to face the waypoint, and now it is diving. And if it reaches waypoint 1 without getting to the correct altitude, it will then enter the spiral. Notice it hasn't gone into an 80-degree descent because it hit that 20 meters per second. So on the climb, it was not able to hit 20 meters per second climb rate, and it went to the full 80-degree pitch up. And then it was just kind of wallowing and stalling. On the descent, it went only like, say, 50 degrees nose down, hit the 20 meters per second descent rate, and then didn't pitch down any further. So that's how those interact. Here, we're adjusting altitude. Notice that even in the adjusting altitude spiral, it is doing it more steeply. Now it's willing to do the 20 meters per second descent, even in the spiral. So let's try to tweak this and make this a little bit better. Obviously, we're doing this based on the physics of this simulated plane, which, that may not be the same as our real plane, but we could do these same exercises in real life to try and tweak this correctly. And what we see is that the plane's is unable to climb past a certain point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the OSD, and I'm going to put the pitch angle in the OSD right here in the center of the screen. We'll put the pitch angle in the OSD, and we'll save. Okay, so we now have the pitch angle on screen in the lower center, and I'm going to go full throttle and gain a little speed, and then I'm going to nose up, and I'm going to see at about what pitch angle this plane stalls at full throttle. Here we go. You can see we're losing airspeed. We're at about 30 degrees. I can see that I'm losing speed, but I'm still climbing and I'm not stalling. 35 degrees. Is it going to stall? 36. Let's just hold this pitch angle and see if it stalls. It's not stalling. Can we go to 40 degrees? I'm holding it. I can't really see the horizon. It looks like it'll do 40 degrees. Can we do 45 degrees? No. So 45 degrees, it definitely stalled out at 45 degrees. So let's go back to advanced tuning, and we'll put our max climb angle at, let's say, 40 degrees just to be safe. And then we'll adjust the pitch to throttle ratio. We're going from a 1500 degree cruise throttle to a 2000 degree max throttle. That's 500 degrees 500 microseconds of throttle divided by 40 degrees. That's 12.5 degrees per, or microseconds per degree. We'll just say 13, and that will ensure that we hit max throttle as we come up to that 40-degree climb. And we will save and reboot. Our throttle is at 50%. We're heading to waypoint 1. We are at about the correct altitude. As soon as we hit waypoint 1, it should begin a climb at about a 40-degree angle, or 20 meters per second, but I don't think it's going to hit 20 meters per second. We pitch up to 40 degrees and we start climbing, holding full throttle. Is it stalling? It's not stalling, it's holding. And we're going to stay there in that pitch, nose up attitude until we either hit 1,000 meters or we hit the waypoint. As soon as we hit the waypoint, we will then go adjusting waypoint altitude, and we'll enter a spiral. And what will the climb rate of that spiral be? We're at about 25 degrees, 30 degrees nose up. Okay, so it's still going to try and hit that 40-degree nose up. So the takeaway from this video is that altitude, number one, altitude management in iNav waypoints is not as intuitive as you would think. Because iNav doesn't want to put the aircraft in a situation where the aircraft stalls, and it doesn't assume that the aircraft can just do arbitrary climbs and arbitrary descents. It's trying to keep the aircraft safe. The other takeaway is that you should consider joining my Patreon. Are you loving this content? You learning a lot? You must be, because you're still here. I have a link in the video description to my Patreon. It's a very small amount of money per month compared to what I know for a fact you spend on FPV. I'm not trying to guilt you. I'm just saying that if you could spare one set of props a month, you can afford to join my Patreon. It would mean a lot to me if you would, because that's not much money to each individual person, but there are a lot of individuals, and it does add up, and it does make a difference in my ability to continue to pay my bills, stay independent, not take sponsorships and do ad reads except for myself. Please consider doing it if today's the day. If today's not the day, well, I'll tell you what the summary of this video really is. The summary is that there are these options that you have to tweak carefully to control how aggressively the aircraft will try to climb, including the climb angle and the dive angle, but also that secret CLI option that controls the max descent rate. No matter what you do, there is no way, as far as I know, to get iNav to climb or descend at more than 20 meters per second. So if for some reason you wanted to do an autonomous mission that involved a really steep 90-degree dive, it simply won't do it. And if you put those waypoints in as it will attempt to do it, and then as soon as it hits that waypoint, it will enter that loiter turn and spiral down. And if you don't want that, you need to tweak the waypoints and the altitudes so that the airplane is capable of actually doing them. A thing that I would want to do with an airplane that if I was serious about this, is I would want to get the airplane up in the air, and I would want to characterize the maximum climb and maximum descent and so forth, and really tweak that in. And then when I built the waypoint mission, I would build the waypoints in such a way that I was confident that the aircraft was capable of doing it, as opposed to, well, just kind of like, I guess we'll just loiter turn up. Keep in mind that the default behavior is to not enforce altitude at waypoint at all. It will make a best effort attempt to hit the waypoint, and then if it hits that waypoint but it's at the wrong altitude, it'll just proceed to the next one. And a lot of times that's gonna be the preferred behavior, because a lot of times, like, imagine I'm trying to do a waypoint run and there's a relatively narrow path, like I'm trying to fly over a river or something, okay? Well, if the airplane, or I'm flying in a canyon, theoretically, if the airplane enters like a loiter turn, it could just crash. I would rather it be at slightly the wrong altitude and continue than have it try to correct its altitude. You got to really think that stuff through, and you got to set these options appropriately. That's going to do it for this video, though. There's a lot more that we could talk about when it comes to iNav waypoints, and we are going to talk about them in future videos in this series, which is in a playlist. That playlist is in a card on screen if you can see cards, or it is linked in the video description below if you can't see the cards. And I will see you in the next one.